Hi, my name is Sarah and I am a photographer based in Southwest Florida. I also teach photographers how to build a profitable business. I'm going to teach you in this quick little video how to create a GIF. So let's go ahead and dive in. There are two ways that you can make a GIF. Both require edited images in Adobe Lightroom. Well, I guess technically they don't have to be edited, but assuming if you're a photographer, you're going to go ahead and edit your images in Lightroom, and then you can turn those photos into a GIF either in Photoshop or in an app on your phone. So there's two options to do it. Photoshop is definitely cleaner, more polished, but if you need to do it really quick or you just don't have a ton of time on your hands, you can also use an app on your phone, and that's a great backup option. So to get started, when you're taking these photos, there's a few things you're going to want to do. First, you're going to want to put your camera release mode in high continuous. It may look a little bit different on yours. This is a Nikon screenshot, but essentially you're looking for the release mode that's going to take lots of pictures really, really quick. So not every camera has the high continuous extended, but most of them will at least have high continuous. So that means when you put your finger down on that shutter button, it's going to take a lot of pictures really quick like that. Next, you're going to want to take like a marker image to mark where the beginning of your GIF is and the end, or the beginning of the images that you're going to be using in the GIF is. Otherwise, it's all going to kind of look similar, and you're going to be scrolling through these images trying to figure out where's the first image and where's the last image. So I just really recommend that you just either take a picture of your hand or just cover your lens really quick, snap a picture. That way you know where the beginning is, and then try to remember to do it at the end as well. When it comes to capturing these photos, there's something that's really important to keep in mind. You're going to want to set this image up ahead of time. So you're thinking through, where do you want them to stand? What do you want to be happening in the image? So there's two shots here. This is a way I could have made a GIF with a single person. So you don't even necessarily need two people or people moving to create the GIF. But there's one image here that wouldn't really work so well, and that's the one with the birds. While it would have been incredible to take a GIF or to create a GIF with these birds flying all around, having to remove all of those people from every single shot in the GIF would have been so tedious. And if you're using AI, you can't even confirm that every single image is going to look the same. So I don't recommend doing this in a spot where there's people in the background, or if there's something in the shot that needs to be removed, it needs to be fixed before you start taking those images. So make sure hair is good, or however you want it, no bra straps are showing, no trash on the ground, because you're not going to want to remove that from every single image that you're going to need to take to create the GIF. So this other shot with the wave would have been a great moment to do a GIF with that water kind of hitting and wrapping around her belly. That would have been a beautiful one, and there's nothing that I needed to remove in the background, so it would be easy to edit. So that would have been a great option. Okay, and lastly, you're going to want to be really still when you take these photos. So ideally, you want either whatever's naturally moving in the image, so it could be birds, could be water, or your client, so maybe it's a couple in there spinning around, or it's a dad like picking the kid up and throwing him in the water. You want that movement to be the only movement happening, because if you're moving with them, it's not going to stack up properly when you go to edit, and then they're going to be getting cut off, and it's not going to look smooth. It's going to look really choppy and funny. So you need to hold super, super still when you take those pictures. Okay, those are just the foundational things that you need to know going into creating a GIF. Now let's actually create it. We're going to start in Lightroom. We're in Lightroom now, and also you could do this with Adobe Camera Raw. You don't necessarily have to be using Lightroom. That's just my preferred platform to edit photos. So not much to show here. I just wanted to give you a few notes though. When you are editing the images, you're going to want to do very minimal tweaking to the individual images, or essentially none. So what I'm going to do is I am going to sync these images. So by clicking that first one, and on Mac, holding down the Shift button, might be the same on a Windows, and then clicking the last image, it's going to highlight all of those. Then I'm going to select sync. So here we want to make sure that no masking. I haven't done any masking actually to this image, but it would be okay if I did a little bit of a mask to the sky here. But other than that, I wouldn't want to do anything like removing these little specks or anything, because then I'd have to make sure it matches perfectly in every single image. So I'm going to leave everything else as is. I'm not even cropping, if you notice, because I'm going to do that in Photoshop. I want to give myself as much room to work with as possible. So I'm going to sync these so that these edits all match perfectly. And these images were taken not even a second apart. So they should all be absolutely perfect, like matching perfectly. And then I'm just going to export them. So I'm going to select those 5 images, and I'm doing a very short GIF here. So you'll probably have more images in your GIF, but I just wanted to do a few so that my computer moves nice and quick when I'm showing you how to do all of this. I already set up a folder where I wanted these to be saved. It doesn't necessarily matter what the name is. I'll just leave it at that. And then the size of the images. So because we're going to be stacking all these images on top of each other into a GIF file, you kind of want them to be smaller images. So I'm actually going to move this down maybe to like 65. That way the files are smaller, they're easier to work with, and we don't have to, worry about our computer getting super bogged down. I'll leave the resolution at 300. And now I'm just going to hit export, and these are going to get exported to that folder. And for our next portion of this tutorial, we're going to be over in Photoshop. To get started here, we are going to go to File, Scripts, Load Files into Stack. That I'm going to drag this little box over. Here we are going to hit browse, and we're going to find those images that we just saved. So I've got this folder here, and then I am going to select all of the images here and select open. Now I am going to tell it to attempt to automatically align source images. What that means is it's going to try to stack these images on top of each other perfectly. So if you've got somebody standing in your image, it's going to try to put that person in the same spot throughout the entire sequence of images. So it's essentially going to go ahead and kind of crop and straighten the images so that they line up perfectly with whatever your subject is, perfectly centered, or however it is in the image. That was probably not the best way to explain that, but I can't think of a better way to explain it. Maybe once I go ahead and do this, you'll be able to see what I mean. Okay, here's going to help you out a little bit more. So you can see that these images are not just perfectly stacked on top of each other. They went ahead and kind of straightened and cropped the images so that these 2 people in each of the images are perfectly stacked on top of each other. That's why we didn't want to crop ahead of time, because we wanted to give Photoshop as much space to work with before we went ahead and kind of officially cropped and straightened it how we wanted it. And we're still not going to do that just yet. We're going to leave them as is for now. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start working on the timeline. If the timeline is not automatically shown on your screen, you are just going to go to Window and go down to Timeline. Mine's already here, so I don't have to do that. But if it's not showing up, it doesn't normally show up automatically. That's what you're going to do. Now, before we start creating our frames, I want to tell you a little tip that I like to use. So if you want to make a longer GIF, but you don't have a ton of shots, a great way to do that is to duplicate the images so that the entire GIF start to finish is this action happening and then reversing. So if you just have the GIF from start to finish as is, then this wave would crash forward and then it would just start over again. Crash forward, start over again, crash forward, which for this would actually be good. If I was having someone twirling though, maybe I would want them twirling and then it going in reverse, and then twirling and then going in reverse. So they're spinning forward, spinning backwards, spinning forward, spinning backwards. That just creates a longer GIF. It's kind of fun to have that, forward backward motion, but it just depends on, your creative eye and what you're kind of envisioning. So if you wanted to do that, I'm not going to do it for this one, but if you wanted to do that, all you would need to do is go over to your layers here and you would duplicate them. So I'm just going to right click and I'm going to go to duplicate layer and drag this over here so you can see it. I'm going to say, okay, now my copy here, I'm going to move to the end that way. And then I'm going to do that for every single layer, right? And then make sure they're ordered perfectly so that, it's going in the right order with, for this one example, it'd be wave going forward and then wave going backwards. So that's just something fun I like to do sometimes. Thought that would be a cool tip to share. Okay, so let's get started with making this into a GIF. I'm going to clip that first layer and I am going to select Create Frame Animation. So we've got our first frame here, but we want all of these to show up as a frame. So now we are going to select these three little dots here and we're going to say Make Frames from Layers. This is just going to automatically compile those into, your sequence here. Okay, so we've got all our frames. Now we need to adjust the amount of time that each one is going to show. It's currently set on 1 second. So I'm going to select all of them by, I have that first one selected. I'm going to hold down that Shift key and then click the last one. And now I'm going to adjust the time on the first one and it should update that time for all of them. Let's see what 1 second looks like. And then I'm going to click play and just test it out. Okay, that is way too slow. So let's try half a second. Also, I apologize if you can hear the thunder. It is summertime in Florida right now. Okay, that's a little bit better. It's still a little slow. And I'm also looking at, I think maybe this one is supposed to be down here. Yeah, let's try that again. Oh, that still looks off. Okay, I think I need to do a little work here because I don't think these have lined up properly. Okay, this one needs to be the first image. I think this one was about there. Okay, that's accurate. Now it's time to crop. So let's see if we can crop in enough to make sure we're getting rid of any space that wasn't naturally filled in. From my experience, trying to do content aware and generative expand just doesn't work for these types of settings. I don't know if it's just because there's so many different layers and images that need to be filled in, but I haven't had any luck with that. Maybe Photoshop will correct that eventually. But let's see if that worked. Perfect. Okay, we've got no little checker marks around our images. All right, the last thing we have to do here is export. So to export a GIF, you're going to do a few different ways. If you want to actually export it as a GIF, you can just say File, Export, and then Export As. And here we're going to select GIF. Now, most of the time, you probably want to export this as a video, though. So if you're going to post this on Instagram or potentially even put this on your website, you may want it in video form. So what you would do for that would be to say File, Export, Render Video. And then you'll just update the name of the file. I'm not really going to change that right now. Pick where you want to save it to. And then you're good to leave the format as H.264. Quality, high quality is good. And then for the size, you're going to want to make sure you're choosing the right size. Otherwise, it's going to add kind of like a black border around it to make it fit whatever size is listed here. So 1080 by 1350 would be a 4:5 image, which would be like a standard Instagram size. If you wanted to do what exactly we have right here, then it would be 1350 by 1080, because this is just a 5:4. And I should say, I wouldn't normally do an image or a GIF in a 5:4. I would normally do it 4:5, where it's a size to be posted on Instagram or something. But I just happen to have these shots from a session I did last night, and I wanted to record this tutorial, so I'm using these images that I have on hand. But you're probably, if you're doing a 5:4 or 4:5, it would be 1080 by 1350. So I'm going to switch it though, just that way I don't have that black border once it's exported. We can now see it in my videos, and it's the exact video is the exact size that it was in Photoshop. That's all for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see the GIFs that you're going to create. Feel free to send them to me if you want some feedback. I'd love to hear from you, and yeah, have fun, get out there, create.